Hello, this is Freedom Tech, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how we can take a video, for example a live video from Rumble or YouTube, and convert it into an audio podcast. These are the steps that we're going to do, so feel free to jump around in the video if you want to just look at a particular part. But this is an actual real case scenario, so I actually have a video that I need to convert to a podcast. So I thought I'd bring you along for the journey. And as ever, I'll be using Pop! OS operating system, and all the software I'm using is free or open source. So there's no reason why you can't follow along with me. And hopefully this will help you. So here we go. So first thing you need to do is you need to download the video. So if I was doing it from YouTube, then you log into your channel and you can just simply click download. In the case of Rumble, I've gone to, at the top, my content, and then I've found the particular video that I'm interested in and clicked download. Now it takes quite a while, so I've already gone off and downloaded it. So if we go to our file system, this is where it's going to end up in the podcast folder, but at the moment I've actually got the video here. So this is the video that we want. If you want to know how I've got an external hard drive formatted a particular way so that it can be used on Linux, Unix, on Mac and Windows, then check out one of my other videos. I'll link to it. So the starting point is we want to open this in Audacity. So that's the first bit of freely available software that you're going to want to make sure you've got installed. It's going to take a while for this to open in Audacity because it has to import a 3.5 gigabyte video in this case, so it's going to take, on my machine, approximately 20 seconds. Now the purpose of this step is to not only retrieve the audio from the video, but to clean it up. And so there are a number of different tools you could use to strip out just the audio, and VLC is another one. But I personally like to use Audacity to actually do the cleaning as well, so it makes sense to bring it into this software so we can do both parts. Now I'll fast forward most of this because what I'm going to be doing is cleaning it, noise, sorting out some of the noise, making sure I take out any unnecessary pauses, vocal clicks and stuff like that. So you'll get the idea, but I'll just run through it now. So what I'm doing here is I'm applying a noise reduction. So I've sampled, I've taken a sample of a bit of empty audio where I'm not talking, so it just samples the background noise, and then I'm applying a simple noise reduction. And so these are the settings I use: about 17 decibels of reduction, sensitivity maximum at 24, and frequency smoothing maximum at 12. And then I've highlighted the whole track, and I'll do noise reduction, and what you should see is a slight change to the track when it's finished. Again, it does take some time because we're talking about quite a long audio. This is over an hour long. But I generally do the noise reduction as the first step before you start altering any levels or doing any kind of editing. Get the noise reduction done, because if you were to, for example, amplify the track, you're also amplifying noise, so it's better to remove any noise before the track's been amplified or changed in any way. That tends to give you the better audio results. So we're currently on this step, convert from video to audio file. That's been done. We've opened it in Audacity, and so now we're doing the edit and clean the audio. There's a lot more you could do in terms of editing and cleaning audio, But the number one rule of thumb when it comes to audio is the better the audio quality to start with, then the easier it is. So you can never really improve bad audio that much. So it's worth kind of looking at your microphone setup, the room and everything else. There's no such thing as perfect, and I would never worry about that too much. But what I would take into consideration is that people will watch a really bad video if it's got good audio, but people will not watch good video if it's got bad audio. It will put them off too much. So audio is really important. Okay, so I'm just going to sample this a little bit. As I said, the process is the journey. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Sometimes you can get a bit of squelching and other artifacts if you've done noise reduction. The only other thing I generally aim for is to do, if I do Control 8, is to normalize the track to -5 decibels. And what I'm looking for here is to see whether it makes the peaks of the track higher or lower. It will probably make it lower, in which case what I will do is I'll cancel that, because I'm quite happy with these peaks. The way it was recorded was there was some limiting put in place so that it couldn't actually peak out. It would, as you can see, the peaks here are about -10 decibels, and so there shouldn't be too much. If I zoom out, there might be one or two high points, but nothing would have got near to 0 decibels, so you won't get any clipping. So I'm quite happy with this audio. The reason why I normalised to -5 decibels is if I've got a weaker signal, it will bring it up. This break in the audio towards the end is intentional, and for the sake of this video, I'll skip the going through and actually listen to it and doing all the small tweaks that I'd normally do, because that could take a good hour. But you get the idea. I've cleaned the video. I've truncated anything from the start and the end that I didn't really need. I can do a bit more processing of the audio, for example, putting in fade-ins and fade-outs, but I'll do that in the next step. So at the moment, we've edited and cleaned the audio. So the next thing is to export it as a high-quality audio file, and it's very simple. We're going to go to File, Export Audio, choose the destination where I'm going to put it, and I've got a standard way of doing things. So we're going to do it as a Microsoft Wave file, stereo. I generally do it at 48 kilohertz. 44-100 tends to be the stock for what was actually CDs back in the day, and a lot of people do MP3s at that level. 48 kilohertz is much more the stock frequency range for video. So I tend to work with 48,000 or 48,000 hertz or 48 kilohertz. I leave it as 32-bit signal. Do the entire project, but trim out blank space before the first clip. So if there's any emptiness at the start, it will just cut that out. Don't worry about metadata at this point. We'll do that at a later step. So we're going to export that now. And again, we're talking about an hour-long bit of audio, so it's going to take a few seconds. Boom, and we're done. So keeping a track of what we've done so far, we've exported it out. So now we're going to convert it to a podcast. Now the software that I use for this is something called Waveform 12, and this is a freely available software. You can get a license for this so that it becomes a paid version. I've got two screens, so I'm working on, for the purpose of this demonstration, a small 1920 by 1080 monitor, but my actual monitor is normally 4K, so everything's a bit smaller for me. I'm just going to open a current project that's got a number of edits in it because it's acting as a template. So we're doing episode 8 of the podcast of this particular podcast series, so I'm just going to episode 7 and using that one as a template. And if I just zoom in to give you an idea of what we're looking at here. So I've got a number of, I've got an effects bed, a music bed, guest, bumper intro, and my host, and a number of filters set up on the right hand side here for each one. So this big track here is the main vocal track from episode 7. So what we're going to do is let's just delete that, and then before I do anything, so that I don't overwrite the previous edit, I'm going to save this edit as episode 8 and by default, it automatically increments the edits each time, so it automatically puts it in as an episode 8 traction edit. So what that means is within this project, there's now 8 different edits, one for each episode. So now let's go to files. So this is the folder that it defaults to, which is where I've put my various WAV files I've just generated. So here is the one that we're interested in, and as you can see, it's just generating it here. And there's got to be more to life. It's auto playing it, so I'll just stop that down here. Waveform takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's definitely worthwhile playing around with. But I'm going to show you a few things that might save you a lot of time. So let me just zoom in, so I'll show you what we've actually got already in place. So what we're looking at here, if I just play this, we start off with some music, and then it's going to bring in my voice.
Welcome to the Wayback Live Show podcast, discussing spirituality with me, your host. And though I may not have all the answers, together out to hear is the audio from the liveshow.org/live-show to find out more.
So that's my kind of upbeat intro, and the goal here is obviously to take episode 8 and drop it into the host track. So when we do that, and what I ideally want to do is line it up. Now you can change up here, you can do it smart, so if you try and drop something it will snap to what's already in place, or it will snap to the actual bars, because it's a music editor, so it tries to work in terms of bars. So what I've done is I've set it up to be in 10 millisecond increments. That way, if we zoom in, so I'm holding down Alt and using the mouse wheel to do that, then I can line this up with that explosion point, which is about here. It doesn't really matter. Now, what it's doing, you can see here it says rendering. The reason why it's rendering it is because if you go to loop properties, this tab on the right hand side at the bottom, you'll see that auto tempo is set up, and it's basically going to mess everything up, and that can really, you can waste a lot of time trying to figure this out. So when you drop audio tracks that are not music in, it will try and find the beat, and it will try and stretch or compress the track to match the beat of the overall project. So the project has its own kind of beats per minute. You can see here the root tempo is 73 beats per minute. So it's tried to match this audio to that beat, and that would make a bit of a mess. So if I played it, then let me jump forwards to where I'm talking. Simple way of looking at it. So because I've unchecked that, it's kind of behaved. What it would have done is, if I hadn't unchecked auto tempo, it would have made me sound like a chipmunk, because it would have compressed the track. But what I do know it's done, so if I hold down Alt and mouse wheel down to zoom out, is that it's truncated my track now, because it started to say, look, this hour-long track, if you match the beats, then we compress it down to 45 minutes. So I need to drag the end of my track back out. Doesn't matter if I overshoot. So what it's done now is it's back up to an hour and 10 minutes, which is what I'd expect. There's some other pieces here, which is left over from episode 7, which is some extra audio that I put in. So what I'm going to do is just hold down Shift, and we'll just get rid of all of these, because we don't need them. In fact, I'm going to hold down Control so I can do... Shift is trying to be clever, and it's selected the one at the top as well by the looks of it. So let's just make sure that's not selected, and then hit backspace. Right, so let's zoom out. This isn't really meant to be a traction tutorial as such, but I think it's helpful if you've not used it before, just to see a little bit of it in use. And there we go. So now we've got my intro stuff. Let's just come across here, and we can just play a little bit of this just to check it.
Each week I answer your questions, and though about to hear is the audio from the show to find out more.
Now, normally there's got to be more to life than this. Normally, the show would start with me talking, but I've put a new bumper at the start of the show, which I want to include in a podcast. And so I've added it in. And that gives me an idea. What I'm going to do very quickly is if we go back to Audacity, go File, New, we can create a new project. Let me just bring that down to the window where you are. Here we go. Right, I'm just very quickly going to record an intro so that I can explain in the podcast why they're hearing these bumper inserts at the start and end of the podcast. Hello, this is episode 8, and what you're about to hear is a new intro video that was put at the start of the live stream, and at the very end of the live stream there'll also be an outro video. These will be every week, but because this is the first time that I'm using them, I've included them in this podcast so that you can share in the experience of the live show. And we'll do exactly the same as we have done before. So we're going to export the audio. We'll just call this episode 8 insert. Make sure we match up the same settings as before, and it's going to the same place. So let's export that. I believe that's done, because it's only a few seconds. So if we go back to waveform, then what we're looking at now is we can see, there it is at the top, episode 8 insert. Hello, this is episode. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this into the guest section, and I'm going to move this one along a bit. And the reason is the piece of audio I've left in has important information, so I want to leave that in there.
Find out more.
Hello, this is episode 8, and what you're about to hear is a new intro video. So this is a good example. That's, as you can hear, is too fast. An outro video. And it's also not loud enough. So let's go over to the loop properties. And remember what I said, if we change the auto tempo, then it should. There we go. It's rescaled it back to its normal scale. Hello, this is episode 8. And there we go, it's not sounding like a chipmunk now. So we've got a few little things here. Let's just raise the gain up on that a little bit.
Out more.
Hello, this is episode 8, and what you're about to hear is a new intro video that was put at the start of the... Hello, this is episode 8, and what you're about to hear is a new intro video that was put at the start of the live stream, and at the very end of the live stream there'll also be, so that's not coming out as loud as I would like, and I've got two choices here. I can play around with it and try and set up guest, but ultimately I want it to be the same as the host, so the easiest fix here is just to drop it up to hosts. Don't worry that I've overlapped that, because that's what you can do with this software. It's quite nice. You can overlap audio without losing it. Hello, this is episode 8, and what you're about to hear is a new intro video that was put at the start of the live stream. And so just by way of giving you guys a little bit more experience or of waveform, like a lot of editors, what we can do is there's a bit of a pause there. Start of the live stream. And we just wanted to say at the start of the live stream. Remind me, cut, split. Yeah, it should be /. So let's try that one. Put it about there. The reason the shortcut keys aren't working, so we'll just do split there. And then we can highlight just that one and do delete. Take this one, bring that across. There's probably guys who use this software all the time that are just rolling out of the live stream, rolling their eyes at this point. So I'm not claiming to be an expert. I know enough to use this software for what I need, and that's what I'm trying to share with you guys. So there we go. So I've got my bumper intro, my music bed, my FX and stuff like this, explosions and things.
-show to find out more.
Hello, this is episode 8, and what you're about to hear is a new intro video that was put at the start of the live stream, and at the very end of the live stream there'll also be an outro video. These will be every week, but because this is the first time that I'm using them, I've included them in this podcast so that you can share in the experience of the live show.
There's got to be more to life than this, right?
There we go. So I quite like the fact that that overlap brings in the music before I start speaking. But I just want to soften that up a little bit so I can grab this and just add a bit of I'm using them. I've included them in this podcast so that you can share in the experience of the live show. There we go. Right, I'm happy with that. And we will just use the mouse wheel and Alt to get to the end. I just want to check to bring down the menu, but you're looking for the live show section. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Thank you very much. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I wish you well and God bless you. Now that was a deliberate click at the end, but that's for a visual thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to soften that by fading through it. I wish you well and God bless you. Yeah, that'll do. So, done our podcast. And now all that needs to be done is, first thing I would do is let's just go File and save the edit that we're currently working on so we don't lose anything. And then File, Export, Render to File. So going back to our kind of list of all the tasks that we're going to do. So we've now converted it to a podcast file. And so we're going to now export it as an MP3 file. So File, Export, Render to File. What you can't see is at the top of my main monitor, it's done this. It's opened up a render window, but it's made it ridiculously small. So we're just going to drag the corner of that so we can actually see what we're doing. So if you hit that button and nothing happens, look in the top left corner of your screen. Now I'll go through the settings. It's remembered what I normally do, but so format is MP3, stereo, remove silence at the start and the end, dithering enabled, only render the selected clips. That you want to turn off auto render automatically down here, because the moment you open this, it will start rendering if you've got that ticked, and you don't want to add it to the library. So sample rate 48,000, sample size 16 bits, quality is best. Normalize, I don't do normalization or adjusting the levels here. What I've already done, by the way, let's just cancel that for a moment. What I've already done is we've got a whole stack of filters. So if I click on that, we've got a basic 4-band equalizer. We've got a compression set up. These are my settings. If I'll just mouse over so you can see them. So a ratio of 1.9 to 1, 33.2 milliseconds for the attack, and the release is 108. It's just a bit of trial and error really, and about 2.2 decibels of gain. And then on the output side, we've got about plus 4.5, maybe 5 gain. Then it goes into a limiter, so we got a little bit of plus 6.7 decibels of gain, 300 milliseconds of release, and the ceiling of minus 4.1 decibels. So it's just all the different bits of software I use, and the volume of my mic coming through my door and stuff like that is all the same every time. So these are the settings that work for me. It's just a case of finding what works for you. But this maybe gives you a little bit of idea of how I've set things up. Okay, and then you can mute and solo things here. So I'm pretty confident with the levels and how everything looks. So let's go and do the render to file. And again, it's opened that up as a tiny little window in the top left corner. So here we go again. So we've got everything, and we just hit render. Now what you're looking up at the top right corner up here is it shows you the progress. You can also see the progress in this box, but when it gets to the far right and it seems done, if you look up here in the top right corner of the screen, you'll see that it sits at about 96% for a little while it does some finalization. So don't worry, it hasn't crashed. There it goes, sitting at 94%. You can see here It's sitting at 96%. It seems like nothing's happening. Don't hit the cancel button, just wait a moment. And then the file will be rendered out. While we're waiting for that, let's just update our list of things to do. Back to the waveform. And it's suggesting that it's finished. The next step, let's just open a file window. So if we go to Documents and my live broadcasts, go to the podcast folder. So this is just how I've set things up. So what we're looking at, these are the WAV files that we brought in from Audacity. Here's my waveform project. So there's the different edits that I've got. These are the edit files. And what we're looking for is not rendered. So this is a trick where people go wrong. It's not the rendered folder under there. It's the exported one. Although you rendered it to a file, it's the exported file that we're looking for. Now I've got a folder up here called Final Renders, and you can see there's my previous episodes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag that into there. And because we're on Pop OS, I'm going to hit F2 to edit it, and I'm just going to match the naming convention with the files above. So there we go. Yep, that looks great. So what we want to do now is we want to go into our list so we don't lose track of what we're doing. Is we want to edit the meta tags and add artwork. But the first thing I do right now is just check the length of it, because there's no point in editing the tags if for some reason, and this has happened, I've forgotten to stretch out the length of the file to the full length or something, and so all the other files are showing in the ballpark of about 100 meg. So this one should be as well. This one is actually longer because I've got the extra bumper on the start and the end. So it looks good. And before I do the tags, let's just open it with VLC Media Player. Bring this down here.
Welcome to the Wayback Live Show podcast, discussing spirituality with me, your host.
So that's working fine. So and I'll just jump to the very end and just make sure it kind of finishes how I expect it to be.
Thank you very much. And what we refer.
Yeah, that sounds fine. So that's where we're expecting it to be. So now I'm happy. We're just going to open it in Easy Tag. That's what the icon looks like. This is a great bit of software. I've gone through a lot of different tag editors to find one that actually works really, really well. So it's pointing at my folder on the left-hand side. You can see here, Final Renders. And as you can see, we've got the tracks that we've already done. So if I just elongate this a bit, give us more real estate. In fact, let's go full screen. Okay, then you can see that all these other tracks, the first 7, have all got title, set, artist, album, year, and etc. But this one doesn't have anything. If I click on the top one, you can see on the right hand side all the metadata, and also you can see that an image has been set. Whereas I click on the new one, it's got no image and no real data. So the easiest thing is just to look at one of the ones above and use that as a bit of a template. So I know that the album is the long name, so I'm just lazy. I'm just going to copy that. So if we come down here and go paste, and then set the year to 2024, track number is 8, title is episode 08, and I'll check this again against all the other ones. The nice thing with this is that you can, I don't bother with a lot of these fields, just the ones that I think are relevant. I believe you can even add your own custom fields, so if you so wished. So this is the relevant stuff, and if I now just click on one of the other ones and then jump back, I can just kind of see if anything stands out as a mistake, and it doesn't. It all looks good. The only other thing now is to go to this one and go to the images and click the add button, and what I'm looking for is my artwork, live show, podcast, thumbnail, master JPEG. So that's a square image that's 1453 by 1453 pixels apparently. You generally want to be, I believe the original is 1600 by 1600. That's a common size that you want to use for podcast images. But basically it's a square JPEG image. It gets embedded into the actual MP3 file, so that when your MP3 is playing on a iPhone, or you've downloaded it and it's playing on your car stereo, it will actually show the artwork as well as the title track information and everything else that you put in. So that's pretty nifty. That's quite nice. So we've made all these edits, but when we look at it, this one's still bold, and that's because the edits haven't been saved. So if we click this button here, that's a downwards arrow, then it saves changes to the selected files. So now that's baked in. And that means if we go back to, let's just go back to where we were here, right click on it and open with VLC, for example. Then what we can see is the artwork is now showing, which is great. That's what you would want. So that's how you get the artwork onto your MP3 file. That MP3 is now named correctly, has its meta tags set up, it's got its bumper music and everything else, and it's got its artwork. That's now ready to be uploaded to your website, your podcasting environment, however you're doing it. I personally use Castos on WordPress, so I upload it to my WordPress site via the Castos plugin, and then that gets federated out to all the podcast directories around the world and ends up on Spotify and places like that. But I won't show you that step because that's kind of down to you, which environment you use, how you do your hosting. That's how you start off with a video that you've got on YouTube or on Rumble or other platforms, and how you get it to be a proper podcast file with artwork, meta tags, MP3, etc. Hopefully you're going to find this really helpful. If you want me to do more on any of the particular steps, or to go into for example, how I do the actual live streaming, then just drop me a message, put it in the comments, and just say hello, like, share, subscribe if you found this helpful.